Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon, and we're going to talk about Twitter. We're going to talk about censorship. We're going to talk about Brazil. We're going to even talk about Kamala Harris and Facebook and all of this craziness going on in tech right now. It is an election year. Brazil's Supreme Court has banned Twitter. I'm sure you guys, if you're watching this video, you're probably aware of that. The interesting development here, though, is that you can be fined almost $9,000 a day if you try to use a VPN to access Twitter. And that is significantly higher, I guess, than the bail for murder in Brazil, from what I understand. Like, this is absolutely batshit crazy. Let's talk about this because, you know, there are certain people in this world, certain powers in this world that would love nothing more than to roll Twitter back to what it was in 2018, 2019, and especially in 2020, the censorship. And, you know, man, they're so mad. And look, I knew they were mad when Elon Musk bought Twitter, and I had a bunch of people tell me that it was impossible. It was impossible. You're a liar. There's no way he could do it. Yeah, he totally did it. And he basically, you know, turned Twitter on its head, 180-degree turn. Well, maybe not 180-degree, more like a 90-degree turn, maybe. He twisted it a little bit to the right? And we have a lot of progressives that have just completely lost their minds, a lot of celebrities and journalists, and you know, of course, we've got politicians, too. They loved it when they controlled Twitter. Twitter was ground zero, I believe, for cancel culture, for a lot of the far left insanity that went on. And I don't think they realized how much of a loss it was to lose Twitter until this year, especially, because they thought, well, we'll just go build another one. We'll build Blue Sky or Mastodon or one of these other services that, like, nobody cares about. Nobody's using them, but everybody still talks about Twitter. All these news outlets, they still embed tweets, even though they hate it, even though they hate Elon Musk, they still embed tweets. So Twitter is central to, I guess, the pulse of the world. And because of that, it's something that's going to be fought over fiercely, just like any other large social media platform. And Brazil has banned it, and you're not allowed to even access it with a VPN. I'm sorry, Brazilian Twitter followers, if you can't hear me anymore. I know that we have a bunch of people who follow us from Brazil because we've been covering Dungeons and Dragons and how, you know, Hasbro doesn't even want to bother translating the incredibly popular game into Portuguese. But yeah, they even had this car commercial a couple of years ago. It was like the freaking best representation on screen of D&D ever. So thank you so much for that. But yeah, let's talk about that. We're going to talk about Kamala Harris and how she is calling for more censorship, and she's very upset. You know, Facebook has to be censored too. But weirdly enough, Zuckerberg did kind of a heel turn, right? And not only was he singing the praises of Trump, but he said the Biden administration made him censor Facebook. We'll talk about that too. You know, normally we don't get too political on this channel, but this isn't, I don't really think this is and isn't a political thing. This is about tech, right? And I mean, you can separate politics from tech for so long until it's very obvious that he or she who controls the tech controls people's minds. And yeah, and it's not going the way they want it to. So they're going to force it. They're going to force you to listen to them. And if that means taking out the competition, they tried choking X off by cutting off the advertising, and now they're just gonna ban it in certain countries. I mean, this is crazy, guys. Like, I used to think that people were overreacting when they talked about global censorship and politicians wanting to control these social media platforms. And now I'm like, no, this is very, very obvious now. You're not allowed to say or think or do certain things if it's not an approved thought or sentence. And it's going to get worse. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. But there are a lot of people who were very used to controlling everything for years, and they don't now, and they're very angry about it. So let's talk about this before we get into it any further. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. No woohoos. Geeky's sitting this one out. I promised her I wouldn't be too bad in this one, but yeah. So let's walk it back here. What happened? This comes from Crypto Times. Brazilian judge suspends Elon Musk's X over legal dispute. So, Supreme Court justice in Brazil has decided to suspend X, formerly known as Twitter, from the country after the platform failed to appoint a legal representative within the last 24-hour deadline set by the court. Yeah, and I think Musk pretty much laughed him off. The judge has instructed the National Telecommunications Agency, Anatel, I guess, to block access in Brazil within the next 24 hours. In addition, the judge has instructed Apple and Google to remove X from their app stores within the next 5 days, and also imposed a daily fine of $8,000 on any Brazilian who tries to bypass the ban using VPNs or other methods. That is absolutely batshit insane. This legal dispute started when the judge criticized the platform for fostering a lawless land in Brazil and accused it of spreading hate speech and anti-democratic content. Anti-democratic content. So wait, so censoring people is democratic? I don't understand. That word does not mean what you think it means. In response to this, Elon has taken to X to accuse the Brazilian government of oppression, even called the judge an evil dictator. Damn. Yeah, so now if you try to access Twitter, if you try to tweet from Brazil, it's actually over that. It's $8,874 per day. How would Brazil know somebody's using a VPN? It's a threat tactic. Don't worry, Brazilians. We can still stay connected with Mind Together. There you go. Do they know how VPNs work? Brazil has just become a censored country when the government you voted for decided to silence you, not to call them out in their failed politics. Now you're saying, hey, there's, hey, this could never happen in the USA. Well, guess what? It could potentially happen in the USA. And this is what concerns me, right? And you should be concerned. I think you should be very concerned about this. This is Kamala Harris saying, yeah, she's cool with censorship. Apparently, she wants censorship. She loves censorship because, it's hate speech. And I can't support that. I can't support that, Kamala, but we're going to listen to words coming out of her own mouth. And you tell me what you think.
He has lost his privileges, and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter.
We're going to talk about the rules for Facebook. The rule for Facebook is you do what the government tells you to do. You say what the government approves. You censor people that we tell you to censor. It's interesting. And this is coming from Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg said that the government told him to censor certain content.
Which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation. And that has to stop.
We've got somebody running for president of the United States who says, effectively, you shouldn't be allowed to have any free speech. We have to have government oversight boards in charge of social media. You can't self-censor. You can't just pry yourself away from the app. You know what I'm saying? The people in charge of the apps can't just, lay down some ground rules. And again, this is just another attempt to take out Twitter ever since it became very clear to them that they couldn't get it back. And I remember there were some comic book people out there. Do you remember these idiots? They're like, if we could just do a GoFundMe, maybe we could buy Twitter back from Elon Musk for $44 billion. I'm like, okay, yeah. you broke-ass some bitches probably don't have $44 and change laying around, let alone $44 billion. So if you don't think it can happen here, think again. And this is concerning. Now, this is on top of Zuckerberg admitting that he had to censor COVID content. Now, there was a time even on YouTube. Now, YouTube definitely has relaxed the rules a little bit. And I think, because they're Google, they're like, yeah, we're Google. We tell the government what to do, not the other way around, right? But I remember when the pandemic first started, you were not allowed to talk about COVID at all. You were not allowed to reference COVID. COVID did not exist as far as YouTube was concerned. Even though it was literally the biggest thing happening in the world, you were not allowed to talk about it. Then you were allowed to talk about it within certain parameters, and every video that talked about it. Monetization, yes, maybe. Depends on what your position was. And then, of course, every video talking about COVID had a little blurb at the bottom, like they're going to do with the community notes, which are going to be catastrophic, by the way, I think on YouTube. But yeah, it had a little blurb at the bottom saying, blah, 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 blah. Here's information on COVID from Wikipedia. If you talked about vaccines, they would link to the Wikipedia article or, the CDC or something about vaccines. Because God forbid they're accused of spreading misinformation. It's probably the same goons that got to Facebook, got to YouTube, right? So this is coming from a mainstream media outlet, by the way. This comes from Reuters. Zuckerberg said Biden administration pressured Meta to censor COVID content. And look, I haven't covered this before, but it's all related. Because they definitely want to censor social media here in the U.S., and we've seen several alternative platforms. Everybody's like, why don't you support alt tech? I'm like, because they get crushed like a bug every time. Every time. They do. If they don't play ball, they get crushed. I don't even think Google would be allowed to be as big as it is now. I don't think YouTube would be allowed to be as big as it is now if it were just starting. Right? Because I think the government has learned. I think the people who want to censor everything, I'm not saying everybody, but the people who want to censor things have learned how much power these platforms have. I mean, it came out of Harris's mouth. They have a lot of power. We need to control that power. That's basically what she's saying. So, she gets elected, things might change. I'm just saying. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, so Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg said the Biden administration pressured the company to censor COVID-19 content during the pandemic, apparently referring to White House request to take down misinformation about the coronavirus and vaccines. Now, as my wife pointed out, and she's been pointing out since pretty much the beginning, she was one of the early, I don't want to say test subjects, but she got her COVID vaccine early. And she had numerous female-related issues because of it. And she talked about it, or tried to talk about it on Twitter, and she was not allowed to talk about it on Twitter. She literally was not, like, anytime she'd say anything, if it wasn't just her account being, shadow banned or dampened or whatever terminology they used back then, all these randos would pop into her timeline and lecture her on her spreading misinformation. And then it came out like a couple months later that, yeah, that was actually a known side effect. Basically, all the stuff that was quote unquote misinformation, a lot of it turned out to be true. Maybe not all of it, but a lot of it turned out to be true. And then now they're just going to hand wave and be like, yeah, well, we didn't know as much then as we know now. And, shots should be optional. And yeah, masks don't really do much. Whatever. Get the latest booster because, Pfizer needs your money, right? In a letter dated August 26, Zuckerberg told the U.S. House of Representatives Judiciary Committee that he regretted not speaking up about this pressure earlier, as well as other decisions he made as the owner of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp around removing certain content. In July of 2021, this is coming from Reuters, guys. I just want to reiterate, this is coming from Reuters. This is not coming from Fox News. This is not coming from Breitbart. In July of 2021, President Joe Biden, a Democrat, said social media platforms like Facebook are killing people, literally killing people, quote unquote, for allowing misinformation about coronavirus vaccines to be posted on its platform. And again, some of that misinformation was actually correct. Some, not all. I want to clarify. Some, not all, but a lot of it turned out to be correct. And it wasn't actually misinformation. We did not need to be locked in our houses for 2 years. The masks did not work as well as we were told they did. And there are still people walking around with masks on now. And this is more like a political statement because the pandemic is like over, right? Others, like former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki and the Surgeon General, said the company was not doing enough to take down misinformation and was making it harder to fight the pandemic and save some lives, they said. Facebook said at the time it was taking aggressive steps to fight such misinformation. You could literally make a joke and get your account banned. Like, I don't even use Facebook to communicate anymore. I use Messenger occasionally, but even that's a freaking disaster now because they added AI to it. It's garbage, but I don't trust Facebook. I don't trust them at all. I don't trust a lot of these platforms anymore. I mean, I'm just getting to a point where I'm like, man, I don't know who to trust. The Biden administration ultimately eased up on its criticism, even as vaccine lies continued. Vaccine lies continued to spread on social media. Well, some of those quote unquote lies actually turned out to be correct. There were more adverse reactions than initially reported. And in fact, some of the vaccines were actually discontinued. And that is not misinformation. That is AstraZeneca. They discontinued theirs. It's provable. So yeah, I'm not going to get into it too much, but basically he said he regretted it. He said, our position has been clear and consistent. We believe tech companies and other private actors should take into account the effects their actions have on the American people while making independent choices about the information they present. Zuckerberg has recently tried to appeal to conservative users by complimenting Republican nominee Donald Trump's response to an assassination attempt as badass and going on right-wing podcasts. Somebody's losing money. Basically, conservatives dropped Facebook during the pandemic, I think and during the last election. And, a lot of them went over to, they tried to go to Parler, right? A lot of them went over to Twitter, to X once Elon Musk bought it. So now they're trying to destroy that too. X is basically what early Twitter was like. Like you were at the beginning. Before it gained traction, you were allowed to say and post pretty much whatever you wanted to do as long as you weren't like harassing people directly, right? You could post memes and all kinds of shit. But come 2020, even 2016, I mean, I've been on Twitter since pretty much the beginning. I think 2008, 2009, I joined, and I saw the change. You could see the change, and it started around 2015, 2016. And then once they started hiring a bunch of activists, which Elon Musk promptly got rid of, right? Which definitely changed things for the better. But you could see all this censorship start to creep in until it was like the world's biggest hug box. Like Twitter was the safest space to say, like you could go on Twitter and you could rant about Trump all you wanted to. And you could wish harm upon conservatives all you wanted to. But if you accidentally misgendered somebody, you'd be tossed out on your ear. I mean, it was so weird. And we saw so many people get censored over there and very, very one-sided. But that does seem to be what Harris wants to bring back to Twitter. And I don't think it's a very good idea. But yeah, if you want Brazil everywhere, I cannot believe this. Freaking $8,000 fine. $8,000 fine for using Twitter. They're talking about some of this coming from BVM Sports, and I'm assuming this is a Brazilian sports website. But yeah, they said that there's a lot of people that have sizable platforms on Twitter. They said MMA fighters in Brazil have new restrictions on social media usage, which may impact their engagement strategies. The judge's ruling has been met with widespread criticism, particularly from international voices. Well, yeah, because you probably can't say anything in Brazil, can you? People said that there may be a shift toward alternative platforms or methods for communication. Smoke signals? I don't know. They said their social media strategies might evolve considerably as they seek to maintain their fan engagement under restrictive conditions. They're just trying to choke off Twitter, is what they're trying to do. And it's going to be country by country, dictator by dictator. And, hope to God it does not happen here. We've been there, done that. So I'm going to wrap it up. Please subscribe. We'll talk later.